Moving on, this one comes to us via Amazon in this country, and I think I've got the title in the wrong way round on our list. So is it The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
Yes.
I'm not going to do very well at describing this. I'm going to ask Matt if he can help me, because this is actually... is it written or produced by the creators of the Gilmore Girls?
All of it.
All of the above. So, Matt, you are more, in tune with this writing than I am.
Yeah. So this is written by, directed by Amy Sherman Palladino, who most famously created the Gilmore Girls with her husband Dan, who's also heavily involved in this. It's set in the late 1950s, I think, and follows the titular Mrs. Maisel, Midge to her friends. The first episode, or the pilot, I don't know how we would describe it. We'll say it's the pilot. The opening scene is basically her wedding speech. Very rare that a bride delivers a speech at her wedding, and it is essentially like a stand-up set that she's doing, and it's like flashbacks to her meeting her husband. And then you go into seeing her life. She's a housewife. They've got 2 kids. He works as a sort of almost like a Mad Men type situation. I feel he's sort of.
I didn't quite work out what his job was.
I don't think it will. There's that line, isn't it? He doesn't quite know what his job is. I don't know if that's like a recurring gag where they're not actually going to tell you what he does, but he works in an office. He's vice president of some sort of company, and his sort of hobby that he wants to turn into a profession is that he's sort of a stand-up comedian. She goes along to the clubs with him and often like bribes the club owners to put him on in an earlier slot with like various cooked foods,
briskets and cakes.
She thinks he's funny. Then it turns out he's been stealing his act from, I think it was Bob Newhart. Bombs at the club, and while the friends are there, and he basically decides to leave, reveals that he's having an affair with his secretary. Her life sort of spirals out of control as a result, and she goes back to the comedy club and gives this sort of diatribe about her life and things like that, and ends up flashing her boobs and getting arrested for public indecency. But I think she's one of the workers, maybe the manager of the club, Susie, played by the brilliant Alex Borstein, and as a result says, I'll back you up and things like that. And then the episode, the first episode of the series after the pilot sees her sort of wrestling with whether she wants to do it, and then the end of that episode, she finds out that the apartment that she has is actually paid for by her in-laws, who now basically are saying, oh, we want it back, because if you're separating, then there's no need, if you want to stand on your own 2 feet, you'll do it without our money. It's essentially the story of this woman becoming one of the first stand-up comedians. I really like this, and I think partly you can tell it's Amy Sherman Palladino, the sort of the speed of the
it's lightning quick dialogue.
Yeah. Stylistically, it looks fantastic. I mean, Amazon, I think, have put a lot of money in this. The period detail is fantastic. The music is great as well. I loved the music in this. Rachel Brosnahan, I can't even say her name. Brosnahan? It's an odd name to say. Brosnahan, let's go with that. He's absolutely
Pierce's daughter, yeah.
He's absolutely fantastic. And Golden Globe nominee as well. He's absolutely fantastic in the lead role. Alex Borstein's amazing. Their interactions are great. Tony Shalhoub as well as Midge's father is brilliant.
I really like him.
He's this like reserved maths professor who doesn't.
The mother was played by somebody reasonably famous as well, or certainly someone I recognise.
Marin Hinkle, I don't know. I mean, I just loved it, and I say I'm probably going to finish it soon. I've just finished episode 4.
So
it's just
I
great.
asked you to watch this originally, so you watched it, and we spoke briefly last night. You had started it last night.
I just finished the pilot when we'd spoken.
Okay, when did you watch the next 3?
Right, so I watched the pilot and then the one after that last night, and 3 and 4 today. It's an easy watch, which is good. It's gentle enough. There is some sharp edges to it. It's about a divorce. I mean, he is a very weak character, Joel. Midge is a very strong woman. Amy Sherman Palladino, her themes are coming through in this. I mean, she's obsessed with, like, gender equality, which is a big part of this. Class is a big part of this. The sort of idea that women can't do what men can do, that is a big theme of this. And I think, and also I think she sort of found her flow being on like a streaming service. I mean, Gilmore Girls came back on Netflix last year.
In the States, they're releasing their best of the year, and this has made the cut for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'd have watched this sooner, it would probably be on mine.
Oh, really?
I really liked it. I'm not a massive fan of Alex Borstein. I don't know why. The lead, though, can you remind me of her name again, Matt?
I'll try.
Brosnan.
Oh, is that the one you couldn't say?
Rachel Brosnahan.
Rachel Brosnahan, my apologies. I was really engaged with her and really rooting for her quite early on because she's not in your face. She's quite gentle and self-assured, and she's not one of these strong women out to tell everybody how strong and wonderful she is. She's really laid back and relaxed, and it's really nice to spend time with her. And as you say, it's a really gentle watch. I don't think there's anything like it at the moment where you can just stick it on and you don't have to work your brain too hard and you can just be entertained, and I will be sticking with it. Gary, on the other hand...
No, this isn't for me. I can admire the show.
Yes, I thought that.
I think particularly, as you say, that the sort of like the setup and the sets are spot on. You know, and there is very much a Mad Men feel, which I think is appropriate because obviously it's set in around that time period.
You didn't like Mad Men, though, did you?
No, I didn't like Mad Men because I didn't really understand why it was being made. But I mean, I think this is a bit different. Well, no, because it's like no one ever said let's talk about the world of advertising, but obviously
it's one of the US's biggest shows in the world.
Okay, fine, but then I don't agree.
I think it was just that the advertising was a backdrop for all these sort of flaws.
Yeah, but I couldn't get over the advertising bit. That was the problem.
Couldn't you get over the comedy bit in this?
I do think it's quick and very witty, but I wasn't particularly engaged. I found it a little bit comedic in the wrong senses. Like they were trying to portray a drama.
It's a comedy drama. It's a comedy drama.
But there was this kind of repetition. You know, he goes to the club, she gets the earlier slot that I didn't quite get my head around.
She's this character who sort of had everything plotted out for herself and things, and thought she knew where her life was going.
Yeah, it's a riches to rags to riches story. I mean, I get that.
Well, I don't know about the riches again.
Well, I suppose that's the part we don't know. But
I think
she's hit rock bottom and discovers that she's actually was the one that had the talent.
Yeah.
I do not think this is for me, but I can admire the stylising and the look and feel of the show.
Well, at least we've all found something we're going to watch.
Not everybody, not everything is for everyone. I just wondered though, Gary, do you struggle with things that aren't one thing? Because I know Cold Feet you struggled with because it's like a drama, but it's also a comedy. And like Matt found humour in Mindhunter that you didn't really pick up on. Do you think you struggle with things that they need to be in a box where you can go, right, this is this thing?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, my sort of introduction to American television was more the procedural kind of stuff, which, as you say, is very much case of the week, things moving on. But then, I don't know. No, I can enjoy shows on different layers.
Do you think a drama can be a drama and a comedy can be a comedy, and the crossover is something you might struggle with more than...
No, I think
struggle to find humour in things that, you know, aren't naturally humorous
supposed
situations.
To be comedies, yeah.
I don't know, maybe. It's worth thinking about.
I think, as I said before, I think she's someone who enjoys the freedom of having these, you know, because it is quite swearing parts and there's the nudity in it. But I think she likes the freedom here. Even with Gilmore Girls, I think when the WB became the CW, that's when they left show before the final season because I think they fell out with someone at the network. So she's never really been able to deal well, I think, with network executives without that sounding too much like
it's interesting because
there's
a couple of things this year. Obviously, David Lynch bringing back Twin Peaks, you know, and he talks a lot about his struggles with the network in the 90s and the freedom he needed to write the show he wanted. To some extent, The Good Fight, you know, the liberalisation of the fact that they wanted to use swears in this series, something they wouldn't have been able to do on The Good Wife, obviously, because it being on CBS. Shonda Rhimes has signed some massive contract with Netflix that they're going after not so much the shows, but the creators now. And getting that kind of like input right at the beginning and saying, look, we'll back you on whatever ideas you've got, rather than going after a specific show.
I wonder when the Netflix bubble will burst, or if it will, or if the streaming
I thought that it would have burst by now, but they've been able to sort of keep their model going, and I think, and what they've also been able to do, any other streaming service, really, it's like, you know, Hoover and vacuum cleaner. Netflix is the streaming service you talk about, isn't it? You don't talk about Amazon, you talk about Netflix.
I was going to say, you wouldn't mean Hoover, you meant Hulu, and then I realised what you were doing there.
I
wasn't talking about Hulu.
Do you know, I was looking through the Hulu back catalogue, because I didn't know what they showed. You can only watch, in America, Hollyoaks on Hulu.
You're joking. Why would you do that?
What I was going to say actually before was the Netflix thing. They are now starting to cancel the stuff that has been like the big budget stuff, like Sense8 and the Get Down. There is the feel that they are tightening the belts a little bit.
Yes.